Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever in the Caribbean you're watching this from, and whatever time of day you're watching. Welcome back to another video. Today's story, I'll be visiting the beautiful twin island of Trinidad and Tobago. So, Trinidad and Tobago have been trending for the past month since November, and they're trending because of what people are calling like a financial crisis, a foreign exchange crisis. Apparently, in the beautiful island of Trinidad and Tobago, there is apparently a shortage of US foreign exchange, depending on who you ask, or the banks are hoarding or stockpiling the US dollars. So that is what we're going to be talking about today, and I hope we can have an interactive conversation in the comment section. So let's talk about it.
With Scotiabank announcing reduced forex limits for both its debit and credit card mere weeks before the busiest shopping period of the year, tensions are heightening across the country.
Indeed, we have to also consider the possibility that other banks may also be considering to take similar steps.
Many people are of the view that commercial banks are hoarding the foreign reserves. Economist Valmiki Arjun notes that the trend in past years points to a surplus in foreign reserves.
At the end of 2022, 2021 and 2020, they actually had a surplus of 248 million, 392 million and 86 million respectively in those 3 years, leaving a total surplus in that 3-year period of 726 million US dollars. In fact, in the last 10 years, banks held a surplus of about 1.25 billion.
Yet still, consumers struggle to access the forex needed to conduct their business, begging the question, where the forex gone? Arjun believes it's high time the government step in to protect the interests of the public.
It's highly possible that they're building up foreign exchange to use for their proprietary portfolios and investing in foreign financial assets like, for example, US Treasuries, which is resulting in them having an excess of US assets over US liabilities. Now, this practice, of course, naturally ties up US dollar funds, which instead could have been allotted to the general public and business sectors. Now, this raises an important policy and regulatory question. Should regulation be implemented to limit the extent to which banks can hold foreign currency assets in excess of the foreign currency deposit liabilities? Now, this could be a temporary measure, at least until our forex earnings from exports return to a high level.
Arjun warns that if the situation is not addressed expeditiously, the economy will suffer. The finance minister appeared to respond to the economist's call for legislative intervention, saying via Twitter, quote, "The request by the media and some businessmen that the Minister of Finance regulate access to forex distributed by the private commercial banking sector is interesting. This could be construed by other stakeholders as political interference, so I will look at this very carefully," end quote. TV6 News attempted to get a response from the Bankers Association and also called the finance minister's phone. However, both attempts proved futile. Renessa Cutting, TV6 News.
So apparently this shortage of foreign exchange in Trinidad and Tobago is causing a bit of a pandemonium, if you want to use that word, where people are reacting to it on social media. Just imagine a small business owner trying to go access US dollars to stack up your business for the Christmas holidays, and there's a ration in terms of how much US dollars you can get. Or just imagine, just as an average person trying to use your credit card to purchase on Amazon or wherever you're purchasing from outside of Trinidad and Tobago, and there's a limitation on what you can get because of a shortage of foreign exchange. So apparently this is what's going on in Trinidad and Tobago. And based on what I'm seeing from a lot of economists from Trinidad and Tobago, there are different reasons why people are saying this is happening at this time. Some people are blaming the banks, saying that the banks are pretty much stockpiling money, like there's a reserve of US currency in the major banks in Trinidad and Tobago. and they're pretty much rationing how much money that they are allowing people to withdraw. Even if you have a US currency account, there's a limit of what you can withdraw. And you can understand that that would cause a panic for anyone having a US account and going to access your money and being told that there's a limitation on how much you can get. So, what could be the reason for this? So, based on some of what I'm seeing from reports from local, as I said, Trinidadian economists, is that there's a massive reduction of foreign exchange that the government of Trinidad and Tobago is earning now through the export of oil and natural gas. And I reported on the channel before that Trinidad and Tobago, since gaining independence in 1962, Trinidad and Tobago, because of oil exploration for over 100 years, Trinidad and Tobago was one of the top oil producers in the world from like the 1950s throughout the 1960s. And there's a chart that shows how well Trinidad and Tobago was doing in the energy sector. Trinidad and Tobago was like the Singapore of the Caribbean. Massive development took place in Trinidad back from, as I said, the 60s, coming up in terms of infrastructure. Trinidad was well developed ahead of most of the Caribbean islands. So, how did Trinidad and Tobago get to this position now where there's a shortage of foreign exchange? So, this is what I want to talk about in this video today. And many experts over the years, one of the things that we see happen in the Caribbean is not the lack of qualified people in the Caribbean to make the Caribbean function. The Caribbean have some of the most qualified, some of the most educated people in the world. So there's not a lack of educated, qualified people. One of the problems that we have struggled with in the Caribbean for decades is one, corruption. And I would say two, like the leaders in the Caribbean, they don't have vision. Leaders, they're not planning ahead. And when you compare like a Trinidad and Tobago, I would compare it to like, as I said, a Singapore, a Dubai. You look at Dubai now and you see Dubai, this oil-rich country. And the push from Dubai for the past, I would say, 10 years to diversify and to go into other areas. We see tourism is a big part of what's going on in Dubai now. That Dubai is the place to go now. When I was growing up, everybody was talking about Paris. Everybody would be talking about, Spain, Italy, like Venice, those places. The number one place in the world that people want to travel now, they want to go to Dubai or they want to go to Singapore. And this is, I think, one of the big mistakes that the leaders of Trinidad and Tobago made. They have not successfully diversified all of that wealth coming from the oil and natural gas over the past 100 years. They have not been able to do that, and because when you look at Trinidad and Tobago and you look a beautiful twin island in the Caribbean, but over the years, most people don't associate Trinidad and Tobago with beauty, with being one of these beautiful islands, because Trinidad and Tobago has never focused on tourism because of the oil, the money that comes from oil and natural gas. And I think that was one of the biggest mistakes. And I think that is a mistake that is coming back to bite the leaders of Trinidad and Tobago now, because they have not diversified. And eventually the oil will run out. And now, not only the oil is running out, now we see Guyana, that is like the new kid on the block now. Guyana is the millions of barrels of oil coming out of Guyana now is a major competition for Trinidad and Tobago. And not only that, but experts, anywhere in the world that you find oil, after 100 years of, the mining of oil, you're it gets more expensive to get oil from the ground. So now Trinidad now, getting oil from Trinidad now is way more expensive than you would be getting oil from like Guyana or Venezuela or other oil countries. So it's now a more expensive task to get the oil. So the market value for the government of Trinidad and Tobago is not the same as it was 20, 30, 40 years ago. And we have seen experts over the years, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but all over the Caribbean, who have given like great ideas how to move forward, and the government failed to take these advice. So I'm going to play a clip of a Trinidadian economist that spoke about some of the things that she been fighting for decades, and the government did not pay any attention, and now this is what's happening now in Trinidad and Tobago. Let's take a look.
In the absence of new legitimate sources of foreign exchange. And, this is where I'm going. The only solution to the current problem, Jason, is that we need to diversify the export capacity of Trinidad and Tobago, the non-energy exports. This is a mantra that I have been singing now for possibly over 30 years. And very little has been done in order to, bring us to that place. I mean, we could talk, the new no-brainers would be things like tourism, offshoots of tourism, like, and I've said this 100 times, the yachting industry, food manufacturing, moving up the value chain and producing things that we can export in a more aggressive way based on the things that we can produce in terms of primary output, derivatives of our cocoa industry, for example. But in order to do that, we have to shore up the basic production of the cocoa beans, which we have not been doing. Mm-hmm. And so failure to do these things, Jason, we've heard about health tourism, we've heard about sport tourism,
ecotourism,
culinary tourism, ecotourism, again, a no-brainer, but we have not done very little.
And those are low-hanging fruits, and you could tell via the budget allocation where the particular mindset is of the government, because listen, culture and tourism, compared to other ministries, chalk and cheese, no kind of allocation really in that regard. So there is only so much that the minister and those within those said ministries could do. I want to ask you.
Exactly. But Jason, there's the additional issue that now, we should have done this a long time ago. And when we trying to talk about it now, because we still need to do it, the challenge imposed on any of these sectors for growth by crime is critical. It is terrible.
Okay, so now we heard from the experts. So my point now, what is next for the beautiful twin island of Trinidad and Tobago, with one time being in the top 10 producers of oil in the world, to now today when the value of oil is not the same as it used to be back in the days. Now we're talking about Tesla, and we're talking about all of these electric vehicles coming on stream now, devaluing what gas used to be back in the days. A country that was an island that was big in production. When I was growing up back in the 80s, 90s, coming up, Trinidad produced a lot. To now, we see most of what we consume in the Caribbean, we're getting it from the USA and from China. So what is next for Trinidad and Tobago? My personal thoughts is that it's going to take some really strong and resilient leadership from the government now and the future government to bring back Trinidad and Tobago to that prime time that Trinidad was like back in the 60s and the 70s. And the good thing about it is that Tobago in particular, it's unspoiled. Tobago is a beautiful island. And recently I heard that they're in talks about doing an airport in Tobago, which is crazy to me. Like, for such a developed, beautiful twin island, the thought that Tobago does not have its own international airport. But I hear that they're in the process of doing an international airport. And I believe that the tourism sector is a sector that it will fix, especially what happening now in terms of foreign exchange. The tourism sector will solve that problem. And the Trinidad and Tobago could go back to those glory days back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s when they used a lot of the wealth that they generated from oil and natural gas to subsidize manufacturing. Because, as I said, Trinidad and Jamaica back in those days manufactured a lot of stuff that went across all the islands in the Caribbean and even in the diaspora in America and in Canada. So that is it. I don't know what else to say. So guys, like, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. If you are from Trinidad and Tobago, if you're living in the diaspora, and this whole foreign exchange crisis. And one of the things too, and I don't know if remittance is ever going to be a top 10 in Trinidad and Tobago, because the reality is that not a lot of people from Trinidad and Tobago really leave the island as much as some of the other Caribbean, because Trinidad and Tobago is pretty much a stable island, and most people that leave the Caribbean, they leave to find better jobs and a better situation. But Trinidad has always been very stable, and so you don't find a lot of people leaving Trinidad and Tobago. You find people leaving other islands to go to Trinidad and Tobago to live a better life. So that is just the reality. So I don't know if remittance is ever going to be in the top 10. But, guys, sound off in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this conversation. What do you think? How do you think the government of Trinidad and Tobago can solve this problem? Because the reality is that, especially in the Caribbean, we need the US dollars to trade. We need to buy oil. We need to buy a lot of the food products that we use in the Caribbean. We need it to conduct business. And when you see like US reserves start dwindling, it pretty much shows up the economy that something is going wrong in the economy. So sound off in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this conversation. And if you're from Trinidad and Tobago, what do you think that the government could do to fix this issue? And what do you think they have done wrong in terms of putting Trinidad and Tobago in this position? Sound off in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Add to this conversation. And guys, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing content. And remember, peace. I'm out.